apartheid in South Africa, when we had the Portuguese on the continent, when we had a number of countries colonizing African countries. And then the moment Africa gained independence, we seem to have lost an issue that would unite us and went our different ways. So the whole question of an African response will have to, as Abike said, will have to be built on finding a new African ethic, a new African, what is it that unites us? I think things like the African Continental Free Trade Agreement are important. I think increasing and improving ties between African nations is important so that we have a commonality of interest and a commonality of views. I have a feeling that African leaders spend more time talking to European and American leaders than they do talking to themselves. Okay, and that is extremely important to look at. Now, the second point I think I would like to make is, you know, the biggest problem in the world in which we live is not so much that we don't understand what the values are, or that we should fight for justice or defend sovereignty. The problem is that those who have power decide when they want to obey the rules and when not to obey the rules. So today it is Russia and Ukraine, but in my lifetime, how many nations have been invaded? There has been the invasion of Nicaragua, Honduras, Haiti, Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, Libya, Yemen. We have the Palestinian occupation. So on the one hand, one part of the world tells us you must condemn an invasion, you must stand for sovereignty. On the other, the very people who are saying that are guilty of the same crimes. So one of the ways I think we can have proper multilateral conversation, Africa can play a role, is to say, let us all agree that we are going to live by these rules. And it does not matter whether it's America or UK or France or Russia or Saudi Arabia or Iran or Nigeria, it doesn't matter. Whichever country violates the sovereignty of another country must be condemned. And I think one of the roles you have, this is real non-alignment, basically standing up and saying, let us stand by the core values of the UN, and let us apply them equally to each country. Now, this does not justify the actions of Russia today, but it's important as we come together to condemn Russian invasion of Ukraine. I hope that if tomorrow America invades another country, we will all come together and condemn America. The idea that is by one part of the world and not just about the world. This is, I think, the real problem. And I think what Africa had in the 1970s was that ability to be properly non-aligned and to stand up and condemn Ukraine. But the only way Africa was able to do that was also because it stood on its own feet. When you're neck deep in debt, you know, there's some African countries that can never condemn China today because China owns them. If they condemn China, they're finished. They depend on China too. There are countries that cannot condemn the United States. There are countries that cannot criticize India. So we need to also have that level of independence because for you to speak and for you to be taken seriously, you must stand on your own feet. You can't be condemning a country one day and then the next day going to beg for food, going to beg for a loan, you know, and so on. So foreign policy is only built on the strength of a strong domestic economy and a strong domestic policy. I think that is what African nations need to remember. The final point, again, see with this war, I think everybody who had a crystal ball has found that he saw wrong. The Russians thought this was going to be a very quick. In a few days, they'll get killed. It didn't happen. The Americans and the Europeans thought the sanctions, the raft, I've never seen the raft of economic sanctions imposed on a nation. They thought that in 2 weeks, the Russian economy would be on its knees. The Russian economy is still standing. So, as the professor said, social scientists need to be very, very careful about making these predictions. What I can predict is that I think at the end of this war, however it ends, we're going to have new alliances. We're going to have new sources of power. We're already seeing in Taiwan tension between China and the United States. Now, what happens? China, India, Russia begin to get closer to each other. And then you now have, you're back to the same, it's not about communism and capitalism, but you have these blocks from the south and from the north. And what we in Africa have to be careful about is not to be carried away by emotions. Don't think because China is in the south, then your interest to China. China is as capitalist as the United States of America. So we need to understand and open our eyes and look at the interests of Africa, not the interests of America, not the interests of China, not the interests of the EU. What is the interest of Africa? And if we can do that, I think we can play a role in the United Nations. But we have to agree, first of all, on this. I don't think it's going to be an easy war. I don't think it's going to be an easy war. Because I don't think it's difficult to get the Russians to go back. And it's difficult for the Ukrainians and the Europeans to accept that. I don't know how it's going to end. I think African leaders need to then try and mediate and see what is the phase, what are the kind of assurances and commitments that need to be given to secure a face-saving exit and traction. I think if the Russians probably feel that the Ukrainians are not going to join NATO, that might be a big step for them to get out. But I don't know. This is the job of the ministry and the minister. So those are my own comments as chairman, and those are my final comments. We have the third volume 3, okay, of the Foreign Relations periodical, which I hereby present on behalf of the association. That's it. And I'm going to do the courtesy of inviting His Excellency the Honorable Minister of State to close this session for us. And thank you very much. Thank you very much.